Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello and a good Monday morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 417-447-KSGF. If you'd like to text in any thoughts, comments, questions, feel free to do so. I don't know. Let's see here. I don't have all my notes pulled up over here. I'm running behind. Why'd you let me run behind like this?
I can't control.
What have you done?
I cannot control everything you do.
Okay, well, I don't have a lot to...
No, there's not a lot going on this week.
Excellent. All right, good. Just trying to get it all...
I probably could have done it for you, actually. I think there's the
Yeah.
Godfathers win
Yep.
a Teacher's Lounge pizza party, which is a pretty sweet deal.
Yep.
Register to win lunch bunch. And then Friday, we'll have your chance to snag some Springfield Symphony tickets.
Oh, we will. See, I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. Ooh, I'm in the know. Yes, that'll be out at Scramblers.
Good, excellent. Right.
Friday Roadshow.
Great way to kick things off this week. I've got some audio. Trump, Scott Jennings was on CNN, and they were talking about who the leader of the Democrat Party is, and he said Trump is, because that's all. Democrats have no real belief system at this point. It's just whatever Trump says, they do the opposite. And it's been this way for some time. I've noted this is how we've shifted from a Democrat Party that used to promote abortion, rare and safe, to now just whenever, and even for funsies, how it is that you get the Democrat Party has shifted to a party that promotes pornography in elementary schools and drag shows for kids and sex change operations for kids. I mean, it's just like no matter how just common sense a position is, they will take the opposite side of it. And so Trump really is running the Democrat Party right now. All he has to do is take a stance on something, bam, they did. I mean, even cleaning up crime. To see a political party fully embrace and support criminals. There was a rally in D.C. USA Today had photos. It's the We Are All D.C. March, and it didn't look as if it had quite the attendance they hoped. It was referenced a couple of thousand people that were there, and I mean it is just the absolute typical what you envision. Rarely, I mean, I sifted through all sorts of pictures. I saw maybe 2 people of color. The rest of them were exactly what you'd expect. He's old white liberals that clearly just do not believe that people of color should have the same standard of living that they do. And so they fight against cleaning up the streets. And we all know, or at least Republicans seem to be the only ones that care about this. It's people of color who are disproportionately harmed by crime. And I just find it fabulous that it's generally led by the wealthy white liberals, oftentimes women, that just don't want that to happen. They do not want those streets cleaned up. They don't, for whatever reason, believe that people of color, specifically black people, should live the same lifestyle that they do. And it's just so brazenly clear. Trump does an apocalypse now type posting, in the vein of Chicago. Like, okay, we're going to really clean Chicago up next. And so, of course, he gets asked by a reporter, are you going to war with Chicago? The level of stupidity with some of these people. Trump's response is fantastic, so we'll have that coming up. Yeah, but these photos, it's what you would expect, this D.C. rally. You've got the balloons of Trump. You've got, Free Palestine, a bunch of, anti-Semitism, of course, which has become one of the foundational pillars of the Democrat Party. And it's just, you keep thinking at some point somebody is going to grab hold of that party and say, enough of this. This insanity is insane. And we have to get back to being at least pretending like we want to be normal. But as Scott Jennings said, there's no one to do that. I mean, Donald Trump is the person that is leading the direction of the Democrat Party right now, and it's been that way for some time. Look at the weather coming up. It's going to heat up. Things are going to get hot again. I think in the 90s, we're looking at some of that. So that in just a couple of moments. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 82. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 54. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 84. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 91.
Myers,
Thank
everyone.
you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. The first day of fall is just. Whew, I gotta sneeze. The first day of fall is just several weeks away, obviously, with my allergies, you can tell. But that also means that the days are getting shorter and the nights are getting cooler. If it's been a while since you have tested your furnace, now is the time to do so. And if you experience any type of HVAC issues, reach out to Russell and his team over at Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. I've used them several times throughout the years, the latest being a new unit install for both my AC and my furnace. Couldn't be happier with the work that they've done out at my home, which is why I recommend them so highly. They're awesome to work with. And for you, whether you need residential or commercial services, they do it all. They also have a 24/7 emergency line in case something pops up after those normal business hours. So make sure that you beat that cooler weather and schedule Foreman out to do a fall maintenance check today. Now you can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
President Donald Trump got into a heated exchange with an NBC News reporter outside the White House yesterday after he was asked if he was planning to go to war with Chicago.
Oh.
Because of course he is. Trump stoked outrage after he posted a provocative meme to his Truth Social page Saturday, which depicted him as Robert Duvall's character, Lieutenant Colonel William Kilgore from Apocalypse Now. The meme was captioned, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning. Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War. Tripocalypse Now." Some Democrats interpreted the meme to indicate that Trump was going to go to war with the city of Chicago. Well, if they did really genuinely believe that, then they're idiots. This is the left, because of their emotional lack of discipline and their hysterics. don't recognize and understand that half the reason Trump does this is just to get them to act the way that they act. He does it for his amusement. And he does it for the amusement of the millions and millions and millions of people who voted for him. This is the sort of thing that he finds humor in. And the fact that the left just, I think they even know it. Some of them do. But they want to be outraged over this stuff. They want to just whip themselves into this psychotic frenzy of Donald Trump's going to go to war with Chicago. So he was asked about it. Now, this is one of those situations where you've got Marine One in the background. He's, leaving the White House lawn. Reporters are asking him questions. And so it's not the easiest to hear, but he was asked whether or not, this is an actual journalist legitimately asking the president, because he put out a funny meme, if he was going to go to war with Chicago. The sort of question that should completely humiliate the person who hired this individual. But nonetheless, she asked the question, and then, of course, Trump responded.
Say that, darling. That's fake news.
Well, why won't the Department of Defense?
Listen, be quiet. Listen. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
I love when he tells her, just be quiet.
Quiet.
He's just, now I saw some of the video of it, and I couldn't see her. I'm sure there's a number of variations of video, but you could just see him leaning in and say, just be quiet. Because these are nonsense questions. I understand, particularly if you just are fueled by hate. If you don't like the sort of thing that Trump does. I get that. But to act as if you believe that it's, to take it all so literal. To take what clearly is Trump being Trump and putting things out there so that they get a lot of attention, a lot of it for his own amusement, of course, and for the amusement of his supporters. And then to act as if that you legitimately believe that he is going to declare war on Chicago. How dumb do you have to be? But these are the people that fill our newsrooms. Oh, incidentally, CBS will have this story later. They, after they did that editing job regarding Kristi Noem, have announced that they're going to stop, I guess, deliberately editing things to make interviewers look as if they're saying something they aren't, or vice versa. This is a new standard. This should just be basic common sense stuff. These people live in a whole different world. Then you have J.B. Pritzker on X, the tubby governor of Illinois, saying the president of the United States is threatening to go to war with an American city. This is not a joke. Yeah, it was, you idiot. This is not normal. Donald Trump isn't a strong man. He's a scared man. Illinois won't be intimidated by a wannabe dictator. I do find it humorous that the left finally realized that they had to shift their referencing of Trump as a dictator to wannabe dictator, because you can't really, if you're calling the guy out as a dictator, he clearly isn't, because that doesn't happen under a dictatorship. You don't have thousands of nut jobs marching through the streets of Washington, D.C. with balloons of Trump in a diaper and demands that he be removed from office if he's a dictator. Dictators don't allow that sort of thing to occur. And it must have been clear at some point to the Democrats how dumb they looked constantly calling this guy a dictator when they're allowed to call him a dictator, which, of course, would not happen under a dictatorship, so they shifted it to wannabe dictator. Oh, well, see, the only reason, maybe he's not a dictator, but he wants to be one. He sure would like to be a dictator. He's a wannabe dictator. Oh, okay. A wannabe dictator. There's a couple of different stories regarding illegal immigrants and murder. I mean, any given day in this country, you can find a local story. And there's one that is getting a lot of attention that I want to talk about, and then one that's not getting so much attention, and one that you may have seen, and there's video of it, so of course that always gets attention, and it's some gal who fled war-torn Ukraine to try to have a better life, and for that, just sitting on a bus, it looked as if maybe she had gotten off work, and just has her ear pods in and is on her phone listening to music or a podcast or whatever it may be, and this lunatic who's been in and out of prison stabs her in the neck 3 times and kills her. Interestingly enough, Town Hall has a story noting that the New York Times hasn't covered this, the Wall Street Journal hasn't covered this, the Associated Press hasn't covered it, Washington Post, CNN, not covering it. Now, at the time of the writing of this story, this, I'm sure, will prompt some of them, if they haven't already, to go ahead and do a story, because there's no real excuse other than continuing to try to create this narrative in this country that these people who come to the country illegally, they're all absolutely wonderful. They peddle the disinformation campaign that people in this country illegally are less likely to commit violent crimes than people who are in this country illegally, which is, again, disinformation. But these sorts of real-life stories obviously hurt their narrative, so they do what they can to cover it up. So there's that, but there's another one I wanted to share with you as well coming up. We're going to take a quick break. The Pyramid Roofing Company text line is 417-447-KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, hunterhardscapes.com, the premier landscaping, hardscaping services in the area. Their level of expertise, their employees, you can read the reviews on their site. Of course, you can see the work that they did in creating outdoor living space for me and my family, which has become just that. We spend more time, other than sleeping, of course, outdoors than we do indoors, and that's something that you get into your patterns, and everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And now that having that inviting area out there with the nice fire pit, they're going to really be able to utilize here when we get into some of these cooler nights. It really is a complete lifestyle change, and talk about adding value to your home. If you're going to be building a brand new home, I recommend from the very beginning working with them to have that be part of the process. HunterHardscapes.com is the site, and there's even an estimation calculator on there so you can get a ballpark idea of what it is that your investment level will be in order to create that outdoor living area, whether it's something massive or just something a little smaller for you, whatever it may be, they can do it for you. HunterHardscapes.com, and also Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. And then my Facebook, Nick Reed Facebook page, you can see a number of different videos of the project as it unfolded, including one in which Quality Control Inspector Butters is the central figure of that particular video. There's a town hall piece from a couple of days ago noting that at the time of the release of a video of a 23-year-old immigrant here to the United States from Ukraine being stabbed to death by some psychopath on a bus, and the media was and has been relatively silent on it. Scott McCallahan, writing at the time, big newspapers, including The Times, Wall Street Journal, Associated Press, Washington Post, and CNN, haven't covered the apparent random homicide of 23-year-old Irina Zarutska on public transit back on August 22nd. A woman fled war-torn Ukraine to Charlotte, North Carolina, before she was fatally stabbed in the throat on public transportation August 22nd by a career criminal and homeless man. Video released by the Charlotte Area Transit System shows the 23-year-old woman entering a train car wearing a black pizzeria shirt and hat. She had earphones in while she sat in front of DeCarlos Brown Jr., 34, on the blue line using her phone. And he apparently stabbed her 3 times, once in the throat, leaving her to die. That, according to the Charlotte Mecklenburg police. The footage then shows Brown walking through the rail car after the attack, removing his red sweatshirt as passengers noticed blood dripping from him. The young woman collapsed in her seat and was pronounced dead on the train. And, of course, you throw in there the fact that she came here to get away from a war-torn area in order to be safer, and here just minding her own business after perhaps a shift at work by herself on this transit system, and she just as quick as can be, loses her life. Brown exited at the next stop where police recovered the folding knife near the platform. Officers arrested him after he received treatment for a hand laceration. Court records show Brown had multiple arrests dating back to 2011, including robbery with a dangerous weapon, larceny, and communicating threats. He served 5 years in prison for armed robbery, according to WSOC-TV. Back in January, police arrested Brown for misusing 911 after he claimed during a welfare check that a man-made material inside his body was controlling him as he ate, walked, and talked, according to the affidavit. The victim, quote, had recently arrived in the United States seeking safety from the war and hoping for a new beginning, according to a GoFundMe campaign that has raised over $38,000 for the family. And I had checked it this morning. I believe it was up over $80,000. Brown faces first-degree murder charges, the outlet reported. Police have not determined a motive for the attack. And a lot of people have noted the stark difference in coverage. You may remember the subway situation. What was his name? Daniel Brown? Is that his name, Daniel Brown? Is that correct?
I can't remember.
The Good Samaritan that stepped in to prevent somebody was on that bus or that train rather, and they were threatening to kill people. People were scared. So Daniel Penny Brown, or something along those lines, he stepped in and he subdued him. Daniel Penny. There we go. Thank you very much. Stepped in and you remember how much attention the media gave, essentially demonizing the hero. And we see how, when it comes to these issues of crime, the media loves to downplay the criminal. They love to instead shift the focus to if there is a good guy scenario involved, whether it's a police officer or a good Samaritan, particularly if we're talking about that individual being white, and they want to paint that person as dangerous, as a vigilante, and there was just so much attention paid to that. And here you have an innocent immigrant to the United States of America trying to get away from a dangerous place, ends up here, and ironically, because she moved here to the United States, ends up losing her life. And you also juxtapose it to, George Floyd, and how the media and the left tripped over themselves with tributes, honoring him through proclamations. An individual who once held the gun to the belly of a pregnant woman, threatening to kill her child as he robbed her. Not a really great guy. Yet all over this country, including Springfield, had some sort of, I forget if it was a proclamation, but it was virtue signaling by making Floyd seem as if he was some sort of good Samaritan. But then when you have a situation in which somebody does lose their life, completely no gray area here whatsoever. The guy just straight up murdered her, and the media does everything they can to just ignore it. Now, I'm going to be interested to see, we're going to take a break. But there, at the same time, is another, and again, I mean, you can find these at any given day, unfortunately, in this country. There's an illegal immigrant charged this past Friday with murdering a Maryland teenager whose body was found dumped on the side of the highway more than a week after she was reported missing. Tossed her aside like trash. This victim is a 19-year-old black woman. And we hear so much, particularly from the left, anytime there is a kidnapping in particular of a white girl, the media will go on and on about how, well, it's simply because she's white, she's getting this attention, when they are the ones that don't give the attention to the people of color who are victims. They're the ones who keep quiet about it. And I'm now Well, we've got to get a traffic update. Traffic standing by, and then I'll pick this up on the other side. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 82. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 54. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 84. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 91.
Any given day in the United States, there is someone that is murdered by somebody or raped or molested by somebody who is in this country illegally, but you generally don't get national coverage of the stories. Now, there's one that's being forced somewhat because, one, video was released of this 23-year-old Ukrainian girl back in August. This was August 22nd, and she was simply riding mass transit, and some guy with a criminal record who's spent time in prison stabs her 3 times in the neck, completely unprovoked. I mean, there's no reason for this whatsoever, and she died there. He's facing murder charges, and part of the reason that it's starting to get a little bit of coverage is because people asking, why is this not getting coverage? And it's the illegal immigrant, or not the illegal, but it's just the crime component to this at play here. And as there is this continued narrative from the left claiming that crime isn't a problem, these things are made up. When you see that visual, it's just a horrific thing. And it's different than, I've always argued this, like you could talk about the numbers in terms of crime and the number of murders per capita, but I think that there's a difference to the average person if it is generally drug-related or gang-related crime versus this sort of thing. Because if you live in an area in which the crime is generally gang or drug related and you do not participate in those particular types of lifestyles, you tend to feel a bit safer because, hey, that's not my thing. I'm not doing that sort of thing, and so I probably don't have to worry about it as much as someone who does live that lifestyle. As opposed to where you see in New York City, people get shoved in front of the subway, or in this particular case, a girl who came from Ukraine in order to live a safer life and ends up, just randomly being stabbed, doing absolutely nothing other than minding her own business. And that really increases that fear level for average people, because average people are like, well, I ride the bus, I ride the train, I sit in my car at an intersection, so these things could have just as easily happened to me or someone that I love. And so obviously, the media doesn't want much attention paid to this because the Democrats taking the opposite position of Trump on crime, and that is clean it up. And they say, no, what we're doing now, what you see before you is good enough for the people in our community. At the same time, a scar-faced illegal immigrant was charged Friday with murdering a Maryland teenager whose body was found dumped on the side of a highway more than a week after she was reported missing. Hugo Hernandez Mendez, 35, charged with first and second-degree murder after a body found near a Washington, D.C. area highway was confirmed to be missing 19-year-old Dakara Thompson, officials said. He is suspected of murdering the teen in his bedroom after surveillance showed her getting into the back of into I think it's supposed to say black SUV that took her to the house in Bowie, the Prince George's County Police Department said. Hugo Hernandez Mendez, 35, has been charged with killing the 19-year-old. He has a long scar stretching from above his right eye down to his mouth, was in the U.S. illegally, despite an earlier arrest in April for driving under the influence. That, according to county executive, he was released pending trial earlier this year, but is now facing an ICE detainer while held without bond on the murder charges, officials said. It is not clear if Thompson, who was reported missing by her family August 23rd, the day after she left her father's house in Laneford, just out of D.C., saying she was quickly grabbing gas. Her family told NBC Washington Thompson's car was found 2 days later, parked the wrong way next to a hydrant with her purse and credit card still inside. On Sunday, a body was finally found dumped on the side of the road. It was confirmed to be the missing teen. Investigators then found surveillance footage showing Thompson approaching a black SUV around 3 a.m. the night she went missing and then hopping in After speaking to the driver, cops said, quote, "For reasons still under investigation, it appears she willfully entered a vehicle being driven by the suspect. The car went to a house in Bowie where a search warrant showed the teen had been murdered in a bedroom. Cops said the suspect has access to the black SUV and lives in the bedroom where the murder occurred," the department said in a statement. Now, the media, and it's always about priorities and hierarchy with the media, because objectivity is out the window. But this presents the media that is run by people on the ideological left with a bit of a sticky situation, because while the killer of the Ukrainian isn't illegal, but he is black, and she was white. And the media likes to complain about their own coverage when it comes to white victims so often. They complain about themselves. We really saw this when that girl had disappeared and she and her boyfriend were traveling through Arizona, New Mexico, wherever it was, and it became very clear. It was very mysterious, and so it grabbed the country's attention, and all of a sudden we start hearing about, well, what about indigenous women who disappear? What about this? And I think most Americans were like, well, you people are the ones who report this stuff, so why aren't you reporting on these things? And so there's this other killing that took place. Now, this one involves an illegal immigrant, so they don't like to cover that. The victim, however, is a young black woman. So here's an opportunity for them to draw attention to a black victim that they complain about their own coverage that they don't do enough of. You see, it really should be simple to cover these things. Crime is a problem we have in this country. Some areas in particular. Illegal immigration is a problem we have in this country. Some areas in particular. You have a young black woman disappears for a week around our nation's capital. Her body is found. Somebody who is in this country illegally has been arrested for it. Somebody that was already in the scope of having some law enforcement issues. He was drunk driving, but no detainer was released. Now, we don't know if this was a sanctuary city component, could very well have been, but all of these things are absolute no-brainer for this to be a news story, for this to be getting a lot of coverage. Now, the New York Post has it. But when your media is driven by ideology, these things are much more complicated than that. It isn't as simple as, here's an innocent individual under somewhat mysterious circumstances outside of the nation's capital that was killed by somebody who not only isn't supposed to be in this country because he's here illegally, but was just arrested months ago and was let out while awaiting trial. That all seems like absolute no-brainer. But, well, now let's see. He's here illegally, and people might get the wrong idea, and the media has tried very hard to portray people who come to this country illegally as just wanting a better life, and that evil Donald Trump just falsely labels everyone who's Mexican to be a rapist and a murderer, and this might play into that, so we can't do it. But on the other hand, the victim is black, and we do complain that those victims don't get the same amount of coverage as white victims, so we probably should cover it. See how confusing it can be? It's so much easier if when there is a situation that is relevant, you just report on it. Instead of getting out the chart of victimhood, instead of getting out the chart of priorities, instead of getting out the chart of, well, if we report this, then people might think that, and more worried about what people think about the people involved and where they fall on the hierarchy versus just reporting what happened. I think it would be very interesting for all of these Black Lives Matter people to really try to bring this story to attention. But yet again, we find out that these people on the left who love to run around saying Black Lives Matter, when it really comes down to it, they don't act like they do. And this is yet another example. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you, the Pyramid Roofing Company. If it's been a long time since your last roof inspection, now is the time to do it. In fact, I had Josh out to my home last week, and even though I have a newer roof, it's always good to check for manufacturing defects and just to get those taken care of before they become a bigger issue. And manufacturing defects, they're not common, but they do happen from time to time. But Josh, he came out, checked for that, also checked for hail damage, shingle blistering, nail pops, all of that not so fun stuff. I got the green light, so I'm all good to go for the impending cooler weather. But if it is time for you to have your roof inspected, make sure that your roof is ready for that cooler weather. They do residential, commercial, and metal roofing over at the Pyramid Roofing Company, and they are upfront about the work that needs to be done out at your home. So if it is time, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
CBS News vows to air only uncut interviews on Face the Nation after Kristi Noem uproar. In other words, they're claiming that they are no longer going to be deceptively editing interviews, which CBS has become quite known for. This is what the lawsuit was regarding. The Kamala Harris interview that was CBS, in which, oddly enough, they told on themselves because they aired the contextual interview. It was with Kamala Harris regarding Benjamin Netanyahu and the fact that Israel clearly was not taking any direction from the Biden administration, and asking her why that was. And her answer was a jumbled mess as always. And they previewed it by airing her unedited answer, and it didn't take long for it to get shared all over the internet, because yet here once again was Kamala Harris with a word salad and making absolutely no sense whatsoever. So by the time the actual airing of the full interview took place, they had trimmed it down in order to, I guess I shouldn't assign motive here, but what occurred with the way they edited it is it had her giving a different answer than she actually really gave. It is also said part of the reason that they ended up settling was because they wanted to prevent the forced release of a similar situation with Joe Biden, in which it was a struggle to get anything out of Joe Biden that seemed to be of any value that wouldn't harm him, as he was seeking re-election at that period of time. And so now what you occur a couple of weeks ago, Kristi Noem is giving an interview on CBS News, and in it she is talking specifically about the crimes that are either alleged or that have been committed by Garcia, the cause celeb of the Democrats, this illegal immigrant that, you know, has beat his wife. His wife had to go to court begging for a restraining order. He's potential human trafficker. He is someone that apparently was so into soliciting like minors and attempting to get child pornography. His fellow gang members were like, dude, you got to cut this stuff out. And so these are the offenses that Kristi Noem was listing on the program. And the reason that is relevant, the reason it was relevant, is because the media and the Democrats continue this narrative that Donald Trump is just, that he said he was going to prioritize criminals, which he has when it comes to deportation. But they want to make it seem as if that isn't occurring. What they want people to believe is that there's no prioritizing these individuals that are actual violent criminals who are also in this country illegally. And they certainly don't want this one individual in particular, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, recognized as being the violent criminal that he is, because he is the celebrity of the left. They get together, they sing songs about him, they put hands on him like he's some sort of fantastic community leader, and they really have gone to bat for this guy. So it was extremely relevant that Kristi Noem was listing out all of the crimes that he committed. Well, they edited that stuff out. Now, they claimed it was for timing purposes, that they had to edit that portion out of it. That was deliberate. They chose when the battle over illegal immigration and deportations so often is over whether or not we are deporting violent criminals or otherwise people who are just looking for a better life. And you have Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, listing off the crimes that have been committed or are believed to have been committed by this individual, with criminals being the centralized, real point of contention here over deportations, and they edit that part out. Of course that was deliberate. You can edit based off of time without taking cherry-picking portions out of the middle of the context so that there is no context. That is something that is possible. People do it all the time. It's like editing a movie. You find the things that you think, that's not really necessary. That doesn't add anything to the story. That really isn't relevant. It doesn't move things along. And so you edit those things out when it comes to reporting what's going on in the world, in the news. And we're talking about crime and illegal immigration. One of the things you don't edit out is the crime part. So CBS News has announced that they're going to stop editing interviews in a fashion that mislead their viewers. Quote, in response to audience feedback, over the past week, we have implemented a new policy for greater transparency. Face the Nation will now only broadcast live or live-to-tape interviews subject to national security or legal restrictions. CBS said its new transparency policy would prevent similar flare-ups. Still, the move may invite fresh scrutiny every time producers invoke the national security or legal restriction carve-out to cut material. You know what I've always just felt, especially with the internet? Put the complete, raw, unedited version on your website, and if you need to edit it down for the purposes of time, it was an 8-minute conversation, you got to get it down to 6.5 minutes, then you, for full disclosure, let people know that you have some time limitations that required it to be pared down a bit, but you can see the full interview at cbsnews.com. It seems like a pretty good approach. But at this point, CBS is saying, we just won't edit them at all. Unless, of course, we have to. All right, everyone. Let's see. Congressman Burleson will be talking with him in the upcoming hour. 2025 Accord rates as low as 2.99%. Gas-powered vehicles over 25 to choose from. The new hybrid is out as well, 51 miles per gallon. You've got the Pilot 2025 rates as low as 3.49%, and the hatchback 2025 Civic hatchback as low as $340 a month. And there's the Pinnacle Advantage, 20% off routine maintenance with the purchase of new vehicles. Brenda saying, from the moment I called and told Dave what I was looking for till I drove the car off the lot, my entire experience 5 stars. Paul listened to what I was looking for, sent me pics with details, continued to follow up with me. I did not feel pressure from Dave to buy the car. He was simply professional and an incredible listener to what I wanted for my car. Paul in financing was amazing, and we so much appreciated his professionalism. I've only driven Honda since high school, and now at the age of 59, I will only drive a Honda. That again, Brenda, regarding our good friends over there at Pinnacle Honda. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello. Welcome, everyone, to the program. My name is Nick Reed. You know, the media really loves to clutch the pearls over Donald Trump and these claims that he's a dictator and that he is a president that has a chilling effect on free speech, which, of course, is hilarious when you listen to the way or observe the way that the media covers him, accusing him everything under the sun, being a dictator, a wannabe dictator. I mean, it's absurd, very absurd. But the media, in the Stephen Colbert thing, they made it seem like, oh, this is just so chilling. What are we going to do in this world? So this story is just perfect. From Just the News, Reuters pulls Xi Putin longevity video after China state TV demanded its removal. And Reuters apparently couldn't move fast enough for the communist Chinese. No problem there. The two individuals made news headlines last week as they were talking and walking on a hot mic. We're talking about longevity and how it is that one day people may live to be 150 years old. And so, I think that there was a little much ado about nothing over the conversation that they were having. I mean, I saw headlines about a chilling future where these dictators want to live forever. I'm like, okay, come on. People are living longer. I don't think it's a crazy conversation to have about whether people will be living to be 150, but whatever. Well, apparently, the communist Chinese did not like it, and so they told Reuters, and Reuters removed it. The footage was recorded during the military parade in Beijing. And as soon as the communist Chinese demanded the removal of the footage from China Central Television, known as CCTV, Reuters ultimately withdrew the video. I talked last week about how China has been engaging in a war against the United States. It's just not a traditional war. They have engaged in it when it comes to our institutions of higher learning. They have been engaging in it when it comes to importing drugs into this country through Mexico. And they have been waging a war against the United States when it comes to propaganda, and that includes having sway over media outlets, the same media outlets that will scream and yell about Donald Trump and how he hurts their feeling and has a chilling effect on free speech, yet they don't say a peep when the communist Chinese make them remove a video. Weather coming up in a moment. Also, we'll chat with Congressman Burleson. Right now, the latest news update. No, it was clearly outdated.
Very clearly.
Clearly.
I'll give you the
Apologies.
updated weather right here.
Let's do that.
The first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 82. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 54. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 84. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 91.
streaming live, KSGF.com, and we are awaiting contact from Congressman Burleson. So we, in the meantime, will move on to a couple of other things that we can stop if we do make contact with him, and then pick up later. It was a couple of weeks ago, I believe, that. Maybe it was last Thursday. It seemed like it was further back than that the New York Appeals Court ruled the $355 million civil penalty issued by the anti-Trump judge out of New York, Engoron, violated the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against excessive fines, which clearly. And so there is a little bit of coverage of this, what it means, so forth. One of the individuals that weighed in on this, Jonathan Turley, Democrat constitutional attorney, who is one of the few Democrats out there that has not completely lost his mind and abandoned his principles. And he remarked on this appeals court ruling, and which, by the way, Letitia James is going to appeal this. She's going to continue moving ahead, trying to really nail Donald Trump.
This is obviously a tremendous victory for President Trump, but it's long overdue. During this litigation, many of us described this entire effort as a grotesque use of this New York law. No one lost money in this case. The banks actually wanted more business from President Trump. No one had ever seen an effort like this. It was an effort by Letitia James to have a trophy win against Trump. And what this opinion has done is to reduce what was a mounted marlin to something of a guppy.
And it was a couple of Thursdays ago that ruling came down. Jonathan Turley posted that, giving his thoughts, and not only a win for Donald Trump, but even businesses. One of the big things that was of great concern was, what did this mean for average people in New York if that can be taken into question and doubted, a legitimate loan that everyone agreed upon. How frightening is that for the business world? And he referenced how this is good news for New York as well.
Send a message to the business community, the legal community, that they are not going to allow raw lawfare, because this was really the greatest example of that. Attorney General James ran on the pledge to back Donald Trump. She didn't even say what for. She just said, I'm going to get him. And the New York voters elected her. And this is what she came up with. It should never have gotten to this point. I mean, I think that in the years to come, people in New York and outside New York need to look at the case and try to figure out how this was allowed to get this far.
All right, and again, we'll play audio later on. Another Democrat strategist asked about Letitia James's plans to continue to try to move forward and try and scrape back any sort of punishment to put on President Donald Trump. But we do want to go to Congressman Burleson, who joins us this morning. And Sarah actually made a note for me. One day we were talking about something in particular. I said, we need to see if Congressman Burleson knows the answer to this. And it was from a couple of weeks ago, when there was yet another revelation. We've heard it from Tulsi Gabbard. We've heard it from Kash Patel. I think Dan Bongino as well, that these bags of, things that are supposed to be burned in these burn bags get found. And it was oftentimes referred to as in hidden rooms. Do you know what that means when they talk about a hidden room? What is that?
I don't know. I know as much as you do, because honestly, I read about it in the news. We've, the department, the intelligence department and the FBI, they're not exactly meeting with me on a regular basis. Yeah. But I could find out. I could ask next time I'm around. I've been around Bongino a couple of times, so I could If I ever get that chance again, I'll ask him.
Well, yeah, because like I said, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but I'm just, it just seems like such
I
an odd,
agree.
and they all just talk about it like, oh yeah, they're in these secret rooms. Well, who are they secret to? Are they like secret to the vast majority of people in the FBI? Is it behind a bookcase, or is it just called a secret room because that's where secret stuff is kept? Or so I kind
Oh
of
no, I'm sure that they're not. I would be shocked if they were like hidden door secret.
Right.
I would. My guess is that with the proper clearance, only people
Okay.
with proper clearance can badge through those doors.
Well,
That's my guess. I don't know.
and the other thing that I'd be curious, and if you know, that they talk about these things that apparently were supposed to be burned. They were in the burn bags. Well, why were they not? Who was it that was supposed to be burning these things and then not burning them? Was it just laziness, or was it somebody
Yeah.
trying to keep it in order for?
Or was there so much to burn
Right,
that they
yeah.
had to stockpile it?
Yeah, but I'm curious about that too. Like these just seem like really odd things to be laying around in these burn bags and so-called secret rooms. And I know that if you are within the FBI or the Department of Justice, that might make sense to you because you know what all goes on. But to those of us out here, it just seems really strange.
Yeah, and it looks like nefarious activity.
Well,
It looks
sure,
like you're trying to cover something up as well. So it doesn't look good either way. It reminds me, though, the secret room reminds me when I worked at Cox Health in the IT department. One of the the managers, the directors had a closet with a printer that was locked, and only they could get it. That way, if they needed to print anything that was sensitive, they could print it into that printer and unlock it and retrieve their paper.
Right.
I always thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Congressman Burleson with us. Now, I think the last time I spoke with you, you were headed back to D.C. for the first time since the usage of National Guard in order to clean up the streets, and you were somewhat anxious to see what it was going to be like. How has that been?
Well, it was different. The homeless were gone. There's sections, for example, there's a couple places that I went to the Rumble studio to do an interview, and in that building and on the sidewalk in front of those doors was always homeless people. So when you went to the Rumble studio, you'd always have to kind of step through or around people sleeping or whatever. They just kind of, can you imagine you renting the space and then people just sleep in front of it? And then there's another few restaurants in that same block where you just kind of knew if you're walking that area that you could have a very interesting, crazy conversation with somebody that's screaming at the sky, or, that's the very least of it.
Right.
But all of that's gone. So you can definitely tell the difference.
It seems to me that, that's part of the reason Democrats in other cities don't want there to be any sort of help from Trump because of the success of it. And they're out there clearly trying to convince people everything's fine. We're doing all that needs to be done. Things are improving. But I imagine once, like, for example, people in D.C., they've gotten a taste of this. And they've, in taking that away, I think is a lot more difficult than not doing it in the first place. And I wonder what that's going to look like.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see if they took away. I think that what we have is an opportunity here, and I've expressed this to the president and his team, not Tim directly, but to his team, and I've expressed this to Governor Kehoe, that with all these blue states like Chicago, I think that if he's looking to go into a state like Chicago, it would make sense to also, same time, go into a state like Missouri.
Right.
And whether you go to St. Louis, Kansas City, or yes, even Springfield has a lot of crime. You could demonstrate how much better it is working with Republican leadership than it is with the Democrat governor.
Well, sure, and just to again show the compare and contrast. It is nutty to me that Democrats continue to just take the opposite position of Trump on absolutely everything, including crime, and to have this opportunity to do something meaningful and positive, particularly for the people of color that get disproportionately harmed by crime, and for them
Yeah.
not to do it, it's just crazy to me.
The best way to expose it is to show people what it can be,
Right. Yes.
how easy it can be so much better, and
Yeah.
then they can't, because otherwise they just mire in the malaise.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, if I understand correctly, there's been an extension that was welcomed by Mayor Bowser of D.C. until at least the end of December to continue this. How you go back to the way it was before, I think that's a very difficult thing to try to explain to your constituents who have gotten a taste of what it's like. I mean, I thought one of the more profound videos that was posted, it was a black woman at an intersection at night with her windows down, and she was recording it because she couldn't believe she could be at an intersection with the windows down in the fresh air and not have to worry about a carjacking. How you then go to those people and make them go back to the quality of life that was there before, that's just got to be, I imagine, a very difficult thing, because that genie's out of the box, I think, for a lot of people, and they see not just what it's like, but that it is possible. And it was so quick. It was like the border. I would just snap of the fingers and it was done. Yeah.
How big of a difference just somebody who actually wants to enforce the law and respect the rule of law. It's just a remarkable difference.
Crazy. I've seen there's talk about potential, like, running out of money, government shutdown. What's up with that?
Okay, so keep in mind, when they talk about that, again, we're always talking about shutting down 15%.
Right. Yes. Non-essential.
And the Democrats, I think they want to see it happen, so they're not willing to do anything to lift a finger to avoid it from happening. And like sometimes I've been to the attitude you can't be afraid of shutting it down,
right?
In order to get to a better spot. We may end up having to. I think what they're planning to do is right now they're saying, oh, we don't have enough time. We got to this point once again, and we don't have enough time. So give us 1 month.
Yeah.
We'll to November 1st, and then we'll have a plan in place. We'll have more bills passed. So there's a lot that can happen. There's a lot of moving pieces. It could go in any number of directions. You could end up with a CR till the end of the year where you're just continuing the spending. Now that sounds awful, but what it potentially would do is actually keep spending at a static rate. If you're not going to do any plus ups or anomalies, then that would be, that'd be a good thing that we would actually reduce spending, keep it static, truly static. Yeah, the other thing that could happen is if they wanted to just jam us and work with the Democrats, they could do an omnibus bill, and then the Democrats would get all their earmarks, and then we would and that would be worse for the country. There's any number of ways that this can go. And so,
and I know that you've got boarding here before too long. So I just want to ask one last question, and then if there's anything else that I'm missing, I know the redistricting conversation continues. Do you think that is going to happen for Missouri?
And the governor know better than I do. I've stayed out of it.
Yeah.
I've just publicly said, look, I've always supported a 7-1 map. I did when I was a state senator. I've seen multiple versions of it that are where districts are very tight and congruent and make sense. In fact, often make better sense than the ones we have today. And so, yeah, I think I would have encouraged them to do it. I think it's the right thing to do. But I think if they're going to do it and pull the trigger, I'm really, really, really glad that the governor included in that call to fix the initiative petition process, because that is a real problem. That's a real big problem in Missouri.
Agreed. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
Thank you for what you do. I'm getting ready to jump on this plane.
All right. Safe travels. Appreciate it, Congressman Burleson. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed, the Pyramid Roofing Company. Text line 417-447 KSGF. I want a great homeloan.com for all of your home loan needs, your refinancing needs, your second opinion. Anthony Carricker talked to us about the importance of that on Friday when we were out at Scramblers. And, there is this thought a lot of people have that no matter where you go, it's going to be pretty much the same process. And that's not always the case. And, sometimes you get what you pay for. Sometimes you don't get what you pay for. But he had relayed yet another story of someone who just was having fits with the folks that they were dealing with. And it ended up all falling apart. And just within a couple of weeks, they had it all taken care of over there with the Carrickers and the team. And so I definitely recommend you get a second opinion if you've already started down one pathway, just to see what it is that the Carrickers and their team can do for you, whether that is a reverse mortgage, or it's refinancing, or it's a home loan, first time or fifth time. I want a great homeloan.com because you do.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 82. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 54. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 84. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 91.
Prior to having Congressman Burleson on, I was playing audio from Jonathan Turley regarding a couple of weeks ago the court's ruling that there was a violation of the Eighth Amendment prohibiting excessive fines, and that was regarding the $355 million civil penalty that was issued by the anti-Trump judge to Trump on that whole loan deal in which there were no victims, and I mean, everything was above board. Everything was the way that everyone always does it legally. And you had this individual who ran claiming, and this is something Jonathan Turley noted, I'll get Trump on. She didn't say what. She was just going to find something, and she got elected, and so that's exactly what she did. That ruling was overturned. The fine was kicked. And you have the Attorney General claiming that she's going to appeal that ruling. On one of the networks is an operative by the name of Julian Epstein, unfortunate last name. He is a Democrat operative, and he has become, like so many of the other Democrats, they're noting that this has been lawfare. As much as they may themselves hate Trump, this is total and complete insanity, including the fact that Letitia James is going to appeal the overruling.
Same reaction that I've had with most of Letitia James' antics in her pursuit of Trump. It's doubling down on dumb. The case in the appeals court in New York in August, you had mostly liberal Democratic appointed judges who all said that the judgment was way out of whack, that it was an Eighth Amendment violation. The notion that you have $500 million fine when all of the affected parties in the case, from Deutsche Bank on down, said that there was no harm. This was an abusive prosecution. It was a political prosecution. The whole thing, in my view, should be thrown out.
So that's another Democrat, along with Jonathan Turley, noting that this is all BS against this particular form of lawfare against Trump in particular is total, complete BS. And you just think back to the year before the election, and even a bit prior to that, when it just almost seemed impossible for them not to get Trump on something, given that they were willing to go after him for things that were clearly illegitimate. And many of them are admitting it now. A little late to the party, but at least some of them are now admitting it. And it just really, at times, it seemed they were trying to get him in Florida. They're trying to get him in New York, trying to get him in Georgia. It's just like, you thought as much resource as they were putting into just trying to get him for anything, some of which was just made up stuff. And then putting these horrifically excessive fines on him, and in that particular case, at one point arguing that he had to pay half of it before he could even appeal the ruling, which, of course, is a massive constitutional violation, which essentially denies you due process by trying to charge you an exorbitant amount of money in order to have due process. And so that was a problem with this as well. But it seemed like every single day, and I think there were a lot of even pro-Trump people, conservative commentators that understandably so thought there's just as much as they are firing at him. And given some of these jurisdictions in particular that are extreme anti-Trump jurisdictions, it was almost inconceivable that they weren't going to be able, as illegitimate as it was, to get him on something. And then here, you want to be able to go back in time and tell your worried self then, don't worry, this is not going to get him, and he is going to win historically at the same time. it just it just seemed that it was so bogged down that was almost an impossibility. Yet here we are to where you have even a lot of these Democrats that are saying this stuff has got to stop, specifically with Letitia James. And of course, it doesn't help that the very thing she was falsely trying to nail Trump on is something that she appears to have done herself in terms of being dishonest when it comes to receiving loans. And of course, a number of other Democrats have gotten themselves caught up in this as well. And so that glaring hypocrisy is something that I suspect a lot of these Democrat commentators would like to go away also, because it just demonstrates the lawfare and why it is that so many Americans feel that there are two different tiers of justice. There's one for them, and then there's one for the rest of us. And it could not be any more clear with a number of these different Democrats. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. All right, I'm gonna, I guess, do one of these nitpicking things. Sometimes I find these things, and I'm like, I know this
I
seems
do
like
like it when you
this
nitpick.
seems like nitpicking, and so it's the Springfield News Leader, and it's under the dining section.
Okay.
And the main headline is two Springfield food trucks teaming up to offer limited time menu items. And so it's got that headline, two area food trucks team up. And then it, goes into the details about that particular story. Then it notes that 417 Tap House is closed, which I saw that. I think they had been around about 10 years or so. And so that headline was Springfield Bar, 417 Tap House closes. And then there's this downtown bar, The Vault, closes due to economy and crime. And so here's the story. The Vault Bar and Grill, 400 South Avenue, is another downtown Springfield bar that has closed its doors for good. The restaurant closed in July for renovations and had planned to open back up in October. According to a July 8th Facebook post, owners confirmed the closure to the News Leader but offered no additional comment. The bar opened in fall 23 and offered drinks, appetizers, sandwiches, and burgers and pasta. Now, does anybody notice what's missing out of the story?
About the crime?
Yeah. It says it. The Vault closes due to economy and crime.
So you would think that there would be a statement
There would
from
be
the owners.
Yeah. And I even went to the Facebook post that is referenced in this story, and it just talked about remodeling and that they would be open again soon. And there's nothing on their Facebook page about it. And the news leader themselves here, they say that they called the owners, but the owners did not offer any additional comment other than their closing. Yet the headline is, "The vault closes due to economy and crime."
Well, how do they know that?
I don't know. I mean, is that the case? Did they just decide, well, that wasn't a very important part of the story? Because that's sort of the headline of the story.
Yeah, you would think that it would be the most important if that's what you're going to make the headline.
Well, and listen, I was particularly interested in it because, people are still trying to pull themselves out of a lot of the debt that was created during the Biden years. Was it, like what part of the economy? What is it? Is it a minimum wage thing? Is it, still dealing with, inflation? But then the crime part, I was definitely interested in that.
Curious about it.
Yeah, because we have seen a number of the stories, which I think is unfortunate, downtown, in which a lot of those business owners don't even call when there's vandalism or a crime, a break-in anymore, because they just chalk it up to, well, that's now what has become of Springfield, and unfortunately, that is just the standard that we have. And so when I saw the headline that the downtown bar, the vault, closed due to economy and crime, I was genuinely interested. Okay, what about it? How, were they hit by crime, or is it just the overall area? But not a word of it in the story. Nothing.
You know what? You're not nitpicking on this one.
I mean, it's just like,
you are not.
What? I don't understand
You're
it.
missing like 90% of the story.
Well, yeah. I mean, it mentioned that it closed, so that part's there. But the reason that it gives in the headline, there's nothing in the story about it.
Journalism.
I just I really, truly, genuinely don't get it. I don't get it, because you wrote the headline. The headline was, so clearly there's some information somewhere that it was due to crime in the economy, but then in the story it makes it sound like, well, no, the owners didn't have any comment about them closing, Okay. There, I got that one. I printed that off, and I was like, there's not really much to say about it other than it really annoyed me, and so I wanted to share it. Did you see the Philadelphia Karen? Have you seen this thing?
I don't think so.
Oh, man.
We're missing out. I don't know. I wasn't
Where?
on social media over the weekend. I guess I'm missing out, huh?
There was a Philadelphia Phillies game, and I think maybe this was Friday. Was this Friday? It was before Saturday, or at least that's when the interview took place with the father. So here's what happened, and I know many of you saw this. At the game, somebody hits a home run, and as often is the case, you have a few people that go after the ball, and there was a dad, and he got the ball. I mean, you could just plainly see this. And so then he hands it to his son. Well, then there is, I mean, just exactly what you would think she looks like. This woman, and you know how she votes. I'm just saying it now. You know exactly this woman's political persuasion. She comes over and starts yelling at the guy. And according to an interview that he gave, she just came out of nowhere and was claiming that, like, the seats, because the ball, there were a lot of empty seats in the area, and it, like, hit a seat, and then it kind of ping-ponged around in it, and, he grabbed it. And he said she claimed that those were their seats or something, and so that meant she should get to keep the ball. But he just took it, you could tell. You almost, this is going to sound horrible. So he's there with his son, and I don't think there was a mother, which makes me think this is like he's divorced, and maybe recently, because you could just see, and he even said this, he just didn't want to deal with her. And so he took the son from his kid, took the ball from his son and just gave it to her. Kind of like, you could tell he's like, I don't want to deal with this. This is not worth it. And he saw it, he said, as an opportunity to demonstrate to his son how to de-escalate a situation like that. But this, I'm telling you, I just really felt as if this guy was recently divorced. Or his ex-wife is a real carbon copy of this woman, but she had the hair, she had the finger in the just the whole thing. And I thought, this is a Kamala Harris, Joe Biden supporter. You could just tell. And it was clear enough that this kid had been wronged before the game was even over. He got a visit from some of the staff, and they had put like a swag bag together for him because the commentators, all of this was, on full display. Everyone saw it happen, and everyone saw this woman come over with her, the finger and the pointing and everything. And now, of course, the internet is desperately trying to figure out who this woman is. There is a woman who apparently looks similar to her and has gone on social media making sure everyone knows this is not me. I am not this woman. I promise you, I did not do this. And then there were reports that she worked at some school and got fired, and that school has come out and said, we do not have anyone here by this name that works here, nor do we have any students or anyone that we can tell that has ever had any association with this school with that woman. And best I can tell, no one knows where or who she is at this point. But man, did you watch it yet? Did you pull it up? Have you seen it?
Yeah, I'm watching it.
Yeah.
People.
I mean, don't you just, it's like, was there not a No Kings rally for her to attend during that game or something?
Right.
There not any sort of anti-ICE protest, pro-criminal illegal immigration event that she could have attended. She went to the game instead. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company text line. The Philly dad acting that way, he will have to deal with it again, sadly. So will his son and daughter. Hopefully they react in a more appropriate way if they experience the same situation. I'm not sure if I'm understanding that text, suggesting the fact that he just kind of gave in, that is rewarding that sort of behavior. And here's the thing that I think about in a situation like this is, on one hand, you're like, this is just wrong. Why should somebody like that be rewarded? Why should such a nasty person, particularly when you're talking about a kid and a baseball, like why? But then on the other hand, like how far do you escalate it? What does it turn into? And sometimes you don't know until it's all played itself out. Because I think a reasonable person could look at the way that the dad just gave up and conclude that wasn't necessarily the best way to deal with it, because here was somebody who was in the wrong and you just gave up. But on the other hand, if it had escalated into something really nasty, then it becomes, was it really worth it over a ball? Like, what is she going to do with it anyway? I mean, I guess, maybe, I don't know, or if she's a big fan or not a big fan, or I just think she's probably a nasty person is what it boils down to.
Yeah.
You see that more and more. There was the deal, was it at, was it a tennis deal last week? That guy who was the CEO of some company from Poland that took a hat that a player had given to a kid. And I mean, he just grabbed it away from the kid. And just increasingly, I find myself disgusted with like the way some of these adults behave. And I don't know, you just like, what is wrong with you? I don't honestly, I hope I'm never in that situation because I just don't know. I don't know what I can go back and forth on it. Just on one hand, no, you are in the wrong, particularly if you've got a kid involved. But on the other hand, what you're going to get into a slugfest with some broad, in front of your kid if it comes to that, and what does that really do? I don't know. Not for me. That's why I don't go to games or anything.
That right there. Whole reason.
No, I do. I'm just kidding. I wanted to play just a real quick bit of audio here that got a tremendous amount of buzz, and I think it was taken a little bit out of context regarding Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein, Mike Johnson being asked and about Trump claiming it's a hoax. And this has been frustrating, I think, to a lot of people that, one, want the truth, two, that are supporters of Trump, because Trump, when he's talking about this being a hoax, and this is what Mike Johnson articulates, and I agree with him, he's talking about Democrats suddenly finding themselves interested in Epstein and trying to claim that the reason information, the quote list isn't getting released is because Donald Trump is hiding it. And Trump is referring to that as a hoax. And we know this because two judges have said no. The Trump administration has tried to get grand jury testimony released. For example, you had two separate judges, both appointed, I think one by Obama and one by, they weren't Trump judges, but two Democrat judges that blocked the release of the information. And so you have the Trump administration that has been out there going through the court system in order to try and get some of the information released, and he keeps getting blocked. And the frustration that I'm sure he's dealing with in having to continue to answer for this when the very people who claim that Donald Trump thinks he's king and ignores judges' rulings are wanting him to apparently ignore judges' rulings and to release information even though a judge has said you cannot do this. That apparently is what they want. And so he has found himself, in this unfortunate position, and utilizing the term hoax has allowed some people to erroneously believe he's talking about the whole thing, like Epstein Island and the planes and the girls and everything, when Donald Trump knows all too well that much of that information is accurate, which is why he banned Epstein from Mar-a-Lago years and years and years before the average person even knew who Epstein was. But he made a comment here regarding Trump, and he used the term informant that has got a lot of people buzzing.
Every single one of them and said, yes, please do that. I'm called hoaxes. What Trump's referring to is the hoax that the Democrats are using to try to attack him. He has never said or suggested or implied. I've talked to him about this many times. He is horrified. It's been misrepresented. He's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down.
All right, so he used the term. He said he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant. Now this has a lot of people very intrigued. Wait, what? Trump was an FBI informant, and I suspect what Johnson here is saying is not in the formal sense, but and the attorneys of some of these victims have been very clear that Donald Trump is the one person who is always more than willing to help, and anytime there was any questions being asked or information that was needed regarding Epstein, FBI or otherwise, Trump was more than happy to give them whatever information that they wanted. And I suspect that's what he was talking about. There was a posting made regarding a story. Poll: Trump's job ratings stay negative. Americans express strong support for vaccines. And the person who had posted it noted, not sure what the advantage of Donald Trump is of letting Kennedy have his way over an issue that 78% of Americans disagree on. At DHS, we call that an unforced error in Florida. Shake my head. Let me tell you what I get out of all of this. The whole debate, whether it is Florida deciding that they are going to loosen up on the mandates, or this discussion about whether or not Health and Human Services is going to recommend vaccines that don't have any real studies behind them. And that's what much of the contention was, is that RFK Jr. doesn't believe that government should be endorsing these vaccines if there's not independent research done. This is where the big conflict comes in. But I'm like, this is how far we have become removed from doctor-patient relationships in which these decisions, you go to your doctor is educated on these things through the medical circles and whatever medical organizations. And this default people have that if it's not the government officially recommending a vaccine, like, nobody's going to know what to do. Those are the last people that should have any say in this. And I think that, unfortunately, because of how things have been run for as long as they've been run, there are what are otherwise probably some pretty smart people who have been conditioned to believe that if government doesn't tell doctors what to do, they just won't know. That's where doctors get medical information, is from the government. And that's the only place that they can get it. And that if you don't have some panel of individuals that none of us even know, and many of which may be on the payroll of pharmaceutical companies, telling doctors this is what you need to be recommending, doctors will just be clueless and have no idea. It's like that in the minds of people is the ultimate authority. And if you don't have government bureaucrats, quote, experts, telling the medical community how to do medicine, then they're not going to know how. I'm not claiming that there aren't potentially some arguments for, maybe government oversight or, it's not that so much, but it's frightening to me, this default that somehow the ultimate authority when it comes to things medicine is government. And if government isn't there to make these recommendations, my gosh, what are we going to do? We're going to have people dying in the street. I mean, do we not remember COVID? How many times, this is a real bad reflection on our culture and our society. Like, we fully recognize, for the most part, the majority of people, that government screws things up. Yet when it comes to things as important as what we put in our bodies and diseases and medicine and vaccines, it's like, well, but we've got to have that government there to tell our doctors what to do. We've got to have government there in order to tell insurance what they need to do. Like, of all of the people involved, hospitals, corporate hospitals, doctors, nurses, physician's assistants, insurance companies, you could go down the list of people that are involved. We really want to have government as the ultimate authority on this stuff? Are we out of our minds? It really is crazy to me how we allow ourselves to be comfortable with the idea of government being in charge of certain things when you can't point to any degree of success that they have in running those different institutions. I mean, education is another one of them. How much more do we have to fail our kids, educationally speaking, before we stop feeling as if, oh my gosh, if government's not there to educate our kids, we won't know what to do? Really? And it's very, very, very worrisome that we for a lot of people, and I understand many of you aren't going to fall into this category, but that there's a significant number of people in this country that think government somehow is the one that should be involved and telling the medical community what is needed in terms of vaccines and treatments and so forth. Like, why? Have I been missing out on an incredible track record of success from government when it comes to this stuff? I mean, we're talking about people that oftentimes in different areas of our country, one which, by the way, is one of the top 2 contenders to be mayor of New York, hundreds or thousands of people needlessly lost their lives because experts said, put those COVID patients in nursing homes. I mean, I'm not a doctor, and I knew that didn't seem like a very good formula. And of course, it turned out for the needless number of elderly people with compromised immune systems, yeah, that wasn't the best thing to do because they were killed off. You got Fauci out there admitting that the 6-foot thing was totally made up. They just throw these things out there, I think oftentimes so that we think that they know what they're doing, so that we don't panic. And this default to, if government doesn't have something to tell us in terms of how to do this and what to tell our doctors and our hospitals, and they have not made any of this better. And it is, to me, insane that you can watch, for all of the flaws RFK Jr. may have, the people opposed to him sitting up there in their perches, virtually all of which actually get money from some of the companies that benefit from all of this, and we're supposed to believe them? And we gotta really shift our mindset on some of this stuff. Springfield's Talk 1041, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 82. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 54. For your Tuesday, sunny skies with a high near 84. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 91.
Springfield's Talk 1041. My name is Nick Reed, streaming live, KSGF.com, the Pyramid Roofing Company text line. So you want government out of doctors' offices because they know better? Like the doctors that want trans education for parents, that is not medicine. Sex change operations for kids that have mental illness is abuse, and we by law don't allow that. That's not a medical decision. If we believe that government would stop that, you think that who's out there pushing this stuff? There's an entire political party that runs around claiming that if you don't give your kids sex change some of these states like California, you can lose your parental rights. These states that are run by Democrats up there in Tim Walt's land. A sanctuary city for kids that want to run away and get sex change operations. Of the two institutions or entities that are going to be more prone to run kids through that horrific machinery of transgenderism, believe me, government is not the solution to that problem. I can tell you that right now. That's where so much of it came from. And as long as you have one of two major political parties that continues to ignore the science, to mislead people, and just take the opposite position of what is sanity, those are not going to be the folks that save our kids. I wanted to share with you a story from The Federalist that is just a brilliant snapshot of the total and complete chaos that is the Democrat Party, or in Minneapolis, the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, as it is. And this is just classic Democrat Party. And you think about the last election, in fact, and the convention that wasn't a convention because Joe Biden won all of those states, and then they just decided, nope, we don't want that to count any longer. And so instead, we'll make Kamala Harris. And there were some people that said we'd like to challenge her, actually, use the convention for the purpose of the convention. And they were told, no, we're going to do a virtual convention before the actual convention so that nobody at the actual convention gets to throw their hat in the ring. And you think about all the money that was spent on an election that never was, from the great defenders of democracy. And what happens in Minneapolis is no surprise either. The voting process, this is from The Federalist. The voting process at the Minneapolis Democratic Farmer Labor, known as the DFL Party, convention in July, was such a mess that state DFL leadership investigated and nullified the local party's endorsements. Now the Minneapolis DLF wants the state DFL rather, to restore the results it nullified and give the endorsement back to DFL candidate Omar Fateh, a member of the Democrat Socialist of America, according to KSTP television. Fateh is challenging incumbent DFL mayor Jacob Fry, who came in second in the shady Minneapolis endorsement convention. The Federalist previously reported that the Minnesota DFL's Constitution, Bylaws, and Rules Committee investigated the local convention and found the voting process had, quote, substantial failures, end quote. The investigation revealed that the convention organizers undercounted 176 votes in the mayoral race. During voting, one candidate was errantly eliminated from contention altogether. The digital spreadsheet used to count votes was left unsecured. The computer tallying results didn't work properly, and the task of tallying results was switched to a different computer in the middle of the process. The creator of the results program left before results were even counted, and at some point, the convention members decided to change the way that they voted from digital to a show of badges. With so many obvious breaches in election integrity, it looks like the convention was rigged. But the local DFL wants the state DFL to ignore all that its investigation found and hand Fateh an endorsement. The state DFL barred Minneapolis DFL from conducting another 2025 mayoral endorsing convention and from endorsing a mayoral candidate in 2025. Minneapolis DFL is on probation for 2 years, and it must convince the state DFL that it can meet the, quote, standard DFL principles and practices. So, in other words, their endorsements, the process was so corrupt and shoddy that not only did they rip them from the ability to place an endorsement, but they've barred them from conducting mayoral endorsing conventions and the endorsement of candidates for the rest of 2025 across the state. The Federalist asked the state DFL if it would consider reinstating the local party's endorsement, but did not receive a response. It should not. This is more than internal party squabbling. The endorsement matters because Minneapolis is so heavily Democrat that candidates who get the DFL endorsement usually win the election. While it is not required, it is common for DFL candidates who do not receive the party's endorsement for a particular race to just drop out. This means a handful of DFL delegates have more power deciding the election at the summer endorsement convention than the general public in the fall general election. So, in other words, democracy at work. The insiders are picking the winners. The public will decide this race when the state DFL nullified Fatah's endorsement in August. It instructed Minneapolis DFL to give all 5 mayoral candidates access to the voter rolls, an advantage usually given only to the endorsed candidate. Now, I find that to be an interesting tidbit of information. So what they're saying here is that they picked the winner. And they can't just outright cancel the elections, so they make it such a disadvantage to not be endorsed that it becomes virtually impossible to have a fighting chance. They won't even give them access to voter rolls so that they know what voters, what elections they vote in, how often do they vote. Those voter rolls are very, very important to how it is that you allocate resources. You don't want to allocate resources to households that don't have people that participate in the vote, and so that is something that becomes necessary. And as it's explained here in the Federalist piece, if you don't get the endorsement, then you also don't get to see the voter rolls, which is arguably one of the reasons that candidates that don't get endorsed by the establishment just drop out and don't even try to run. If the Minneapolis DFL can't see that the many anomalies in the endorsement convention election render the results useless, the party should never be left in charge of another election. Its credibility is shot. The Minneapolis Democrat Farmer Labor Party should be embarrassed by its request to be released from the consequences of its shoddy election. Why not let the public decide between the 5 candidates without the party's hands on the race? Because that's not who they are. I believe it was Iowa when Hillary Clinton was running. And it was the time that Obama wasn't, and so she was expected to be picked the winner. And I want to say it was in Iowa that there were, because it's the Iowa does the caucus, and any precinct in which there is a tie, a coin flip is done. And I want to say that there were 5 instances of that occurring throughout the state, and every single one of them, every single one of the coin tosses, Hillary Clinton won. You know what the odds of that are? Part of the falling out from the Democrat Party that was with Tulsi Gabbard, she was working on behalf of Bernie Sanders at the time, and it became so clear that they were rigging it. some of the people like the Tulsi Gabbards began to wake up and realize that this is not a party of democracy. It is not a party that sees the vote as sacred, that they will just pick, and if they have to cheat, so be it. And that this is internally even. So this is what a lot of, I think, Republicans don't realize. They think that the only cheating takes place when they're up against Republicans, but they do it to each other all the time. We've seen it happen in St. Louis, in which years ago an entire election was overturned because the Democrat incumbent was stuffing the ballot box. And the Democrat challenger pitched enough of a fit about it that it became unavoidable in the St. Louis media market. And so I think you had the St. Louis Post-Dispatch get involved and others, and it was so clear that cheating took place that election got overturned. And when you see how this plays out in Minneapolis, I mean, it just talk about just stealing away any shred of confidence one may have in elections when that particular political party is in charge of them. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Here's what Liz said regarding her experience. Emily was amazing to work with. This was our first time buying a house, but she was endlessly patient and did a great job of helping us understand the market, how everything worked. I really felt comfortable knowing she would not let us get cheated or push something that didn't work for us. Emily is amazing. I cannot recommend her enough. You know, the part of that stands out is referencing that she wouldn't let us get pushed into something that we didn't want. In fact, she oftentimes may be the first one to tap you on the shoulder and remind you, now listen, when you first started this process, there were a few of these things that you said were have-tos, and I know that sometimes when you have a difficult time finding a house, you get frustrated and you start to become a little less stringent on some of those have-tos, and she will remind you of that. She is not out there just to do as much volume as quickly as possible. She believes in the long term, and it's why so many people trust her, because she wants to make sure you get into what you need. And of course, if you're selling your home, helping you get the most out of it that you can and as quickly as you can. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 82. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low around 54. For your Tuesday, sunny with a high near 84. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 91.
I've seen some of these headlines. It depends on where you get the headline. Now, Fox News, Trump met with mixed reaction at U.S. Open final. Non-Fox News outlets are about how he got booed while he was there. In fact, apparently there was a rule put into place to not, like the commentators, to not make any reference to any crowd reaction regarding Trump. And one of them did it anyhow, noting that he was booed when he was put up on the Jumbotron. Have you seen that crowd? I mean, it's like all celebrities. Of course, these are some of the richest left-wingers we have in the country. Now, apparently also because of security, that caused difficulty, a lot of people getting in at the start of the match. Now, I don't know if that's true, but if it is, I can understand that some people would be frustrated by that. That would be a very frustrating thing. But one of the someone had noted, people paid thousands and thousands of dollars to come see this, and here Trump is here, and I'm thinking, yeah, I bet those people are going to boo. These are not your traditional average blue collar worker people. Tennis, I'm not dogging tennis, but I think that when you just look at the crowd of people, and they kept showing these people because their reactions as the gameplay was unfolding and the intensity, like, the different celebrities. I mean, it was a bunch of, not everyone, but you're going to have enough of the very elite, left-wing, uber-wealthy people, the people that we're told are Republicans, right? I mean, if you look at this stereotype and how it is that people on the left and in the media and the Democrat Party have tried to paint the average Republican. They have painted this picture of the snooty, uber-wealthy individuals that don't attend NASCAR. They don't attend normal people sports. They go to things like polo and tennis matches. But in fact, it's quite the opposite. And I think that reception demonstrates just that. It didn't surprise. Did you see any of the faces in the crowd? They were actors and actresses. Like John Mulaney was there. Ben Stiller. I'm just going off the top of my head as they would show these different uber wealthy celebrities, and yeah, probably not going to be a really warm reception for Donald Trump. Did you see Charlemagne the God on his show last week? I believe it was. Declared that he so regrets getting the COVID shot.
Really?
Yeah, apparently he said that ever since then he has suffered what a lot of other people, I know some personally, have suffered, and that is chest pains, certain types of chest pains since getting that COVID shot. And I thought that was a pretty interesting revelation that he made on his show. Wonder what sort of reaction that is going to get. See, increasingly what is happening is you have people that aren't crazy anti-vax right-wingers that got the vaccine because they trusted Fauci and they trusted the media and they trusted Stephen Colbert as experts, and then they have, since getting the shot, suffered, real life. It may not be anything completely debilitating, but certainly something worrisome. You're talking about having pains in your chest. I think especially as a guy at a certain age, that does give you grave concern. And increasingly, you have these people who clearly aren't pro-Trump anti-vaxxers that are making these revelations and these declarations. And I think it's just changing the way a lot of people see all of it. And I hate that there have to have been unintended consequences for people to wake up and realize that you don't, just because somebody is called an expert, trust everything that they say and throw away all your critical thinking skills because an expert told me to do this. That sometimes that's not the best route to go. Sometimes. And then one other big news item. I'm throwing random things out.
I like it.
So
What
apparently,
else you got?
okay, apparently this actually, I'm surprised I haven't seen it yet on any of the news monitors that we have up. Last Monday, Howard Stern was supposed to make an announcement about the future of his show. Because, at one point it was like it's going to go away, and then it wasn't. And then, well, they were going to make him an offer, but they didn't figure he would want it. But then he kind of, in fact, there were some people who claimed that he is the one who started all of that and pretending like he was caught off guard in order to get a lot of media attention about his contract, hoping that that somehow might work in his favor. Now, that was just some speculation. He was supposed to announce it last Monday, but then on his show, or I don't know if it was on the show or elsewhere, he said he was going to wait until today because a deal had not been done. When people tuned in to hear his show today, it was not there. Andy Cohen instead was on in his place, seemingly acknowledging that he is the replacement for that show, and that at least as of this point, Howard Stern is no longer on XM. Andy, this morning on Stern's Channel 100, came on saying, I know you're expecting a big announcement from Howard, and this is not how things were meant to go. This was supposed to be a cleaner handoff. I'm kind of winging it, saying that it had been a, quote, surreal morning here, adding, I can't possibly fill his void, and said he was confident Stern would land on another platform soon. So it appears that based off of that, unless there's, some marketing ploy at hand here, that Howard Stern's time at XM has come to a close.
Well, New York Post says that that was a staged bit.
Oh, okay.
Where they played into the rumors.
This just now, this one?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see.
Well, yeah, just came out just a little bit ago.
I just, he went from like 20 million fans like just over a couple 100,000 or 20,000 or something. I did not realize how few listeners he actually had compared to what he's getting paid. That just really surprised me. I thought it would have been much larger than that. But hey, I mean, some people really like, I guess, senior citizen radio. And that is really what he has become. And nothing against, in any way, shape, or form, senior citizens, but he's just become that cranky kind of senior that you just stereotype others off of. And I don't know. I guess for some people, there's still something there. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Ozarks elder law. What age? What age should you be when you start worrying about needing elder law? The age is 18. Lori Rook was on with us Friday talking about this very fact, and that seems like that's counter to elder, right? 18 years old, you've just become an adult. That's why you got to do it. Your parents can no longer make decisions for you. You get in some sort of accident and you need medical decisions made. If you have not worked with Ozarks Elder Law and made sure that those powers are assigned to someone, whether it's financial or medical, in case you can't make those decisions for yourself, your loved ones will not be making those decisions for you. And even in Missouri, assuming, oh, well, I'm married, my spouse gets to make those decisions, that is not a guarantee. As soon as you become an adult, you should do this. Ozarks Elder Law, there are 10 area locations, including, all the way from, let's see, we've got Joplin, Lebanon, Springfield, of course. Where's my listing here? I did have a full listing of them all. I don't want to leave any out. But you can find them at ozarkselderlaw.com, obviously, all of the different area locations and consultation. There it is. Mountain Grove, that's the one I was trying to think of over to the east. All the locations, you can find them, ozarkselderlaw.com, and consultation costs you nothing, so you can find out what you need to do in order to get yourself ready and prepared should the unexpected happen, and you'll know ahead of time what it'll cost in order to get it done. And it isn't an hourly or quarter-hourly situation. One fee up front, you'll know what it is, ozarkselderlaw.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. The Democratic Socialists of America Party, of which Mamdani is a prominent member, has doubled down on its anti-Semitic extremism, supporting armed struggle against the Jews, and threatening to expel any members that do not comply with its hardline dictates against the Jewish state, according to the New York Post. The DSA, which is the Democratic Socialists of America, adopted the new resolution, quote, for a fighting anti-Zionist DSA at its biannual national conference in Chicago last month, according to documents viewed by the Post. As a member of the party, mayoral candidate Mamdani could face pressure from its leadership body to adhere to its stance, which could dramatically affect his campaign. Members, including lawmakers backed by the party, now face full-blown expulsion if they oppose the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel or work with any lobbyists affiliated with pro-Israel groups, such as the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, among others, the document says. Members can even be expelled if they just support the Jewish right to exist, according to the literature. The resolution, quote, unequivocally affirms the principles set forth by the Palestinian National Council in 1977 that emphasizes escalating armed struggle and resistance by any means necessary, according to the document. The resolution draws a clear internal red line and signals intensifying ideological rigidity, intolerance, and radicalism around the Israeli-Palestinian conflict within the DSA, said a recent report from the Network Contagion Research Institute, a nonprofit that tracks extremism. Quote, these developments warrant close monitoring, both for their implementation on New York City's electoral landscape and their potential role in mainstreaming anti-Semitic or extremist ideological frameworks within U.S. political discourse. This should come as no surprise. This is the direction that the party is trending. And you've got within the party two factions. The faction that is anti-Semitic and believes in finishing what Hitler started. And then the faction of the Democrat Party that isn't quite so anti-Semitic. Guess who wins in a hate fight on something like that? Guess who has a greater passion for their cause? It's the extreme anti-Semitic wing. And so they're going to win the day. And what unfortunately is going to happen, and this is the normalizing of anti-Semitism. The Democrats that are within the party, well, look at Elizabeth Warren. She's saddling right up to Mamdani. And what they will do is when we see anti-Semitism, as it just can't get any more clear than this, they will deny it's anti-Semitism. They'll couch it as free speech, or they'll say, well, just because this doesn't mean it's anti-Semitic. This isn't simply about disagreeing with the policies of Israel. These are people who want the Jews gone. These are the people who want to finish what Hitler started. And they are in the Democrat Party. They are very influential within the Democrat Party, and they care more about their anti-Semitic extremists than the sort of softies care about theirs, referring to the sort of the soft bigotry. Now, you may say, Well, now Andrew Cuomo, he still has a chance, right? So at least there will be one non-anti-Semitic individual running for mayor of New York. How's this story? Andrew Cuomo meets with Al Sharpton, an apparent attempt for endorsement as speculation mounts in New York City mayoral race. So one of the other extremely high-profile anti-Semites, and you've got the other Democrat candidate that is, well, Mamdani's Democrat is running as socialist Marxist. They've all become the same. And Andrew Cuomo, who has talked about running as the independent candidate, is running to probably outside of Mamdani and Farrakhan, the arguably the third most anti-Semitic, high-profile individual in the New York City area, and that's Al Sharpton. This is a guy that led riots that resulted in Jews dying. I mean, what has become of you, Democrat Party? What has become of you, the Democrat voter? Are there none of you to stand up and say, no, this is wrong? Are you all going to stand completely silent as anti-Semitism completely takes over your political party? Are there none of you left that are willing to stand up and say, this is wrong, this is not who we are? You've got these two leading candidates, both, and just what does that tell us? Vying for Democrat votes, and they are leaning further and further into anti-Semitism because they believe that's how to get it. Oh, but Trump's Hitler. Yeah, that's right. It can be very confusing sometimes. I played audio earlier in this show of Mike Johnson referring to Donald Trump as an FBI informant regarding Epstein. And this was in the U.S. Capitol, and he was being asked, that being Speaker Johnson, about the comments Trump has made about all the Epstein stuff being a hoax. And Johnson pointed out that he's not talking about the allegations or the conviction, but the fact that Democrats have found this new interest in revealing the names of people who are involved with Epstein, something that Trump has talked about doing while the Democrats weren't wanting to, seemingly. And Trump has tried through the court system to get the grand jury transcripts released, but judges have blocked him from doing it. And he noted that Trump was the first one to dealt out any form of punishment to Jeffrey Epstein when it began to become apparent that maybe he had inappropriate relations with underage girls, and that Trump is the one who booted him out of Mar-a-Lago. And he referenced Trump as an informant to the FBI regarding Jeffrey Epstein. There's a story in Town Hall this morning. Speaker Johnson just walked back this claim about Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. The Jeffrey Epstein case is a circus. It didn't need to be, but the shambolic rollout of the supposed files, which was the mother of all nothing burgers since the binders were filled with information we already knew, coupled with Attorney General Pam Bondi saying she had the client list, made for an epic public relations disaster for the Trump administration. There are dedicated people who want to know the truth, especially after the infamous New York financier was found dead in his cell from an apparent suicide in August of 2019. The victims of Epstein deserve justice, too. The problem is everyone is shooting their mouth off, the president included. Mr. Trump said the Epstein files was a hoax. It's not. Then Speaker Mike Johnson, of all people, decided to hurl this stick of dynamite into the mix. Trump was an Epstein informant for the FBI, but he soon retracted the claim via the Washington Post. That headline that he's, backing off the claim that Trump was an FBI informant in the Epstein case. The statements from the House Speaker came as Democrats and a small number of Republicans are pushing the legislation to compel the release of more files on Jeffrey Epstein. So, I haven't had a chance to look into the Washington Post story because it was just posted, but I suspect, again, what Johnson was suggesting is that Trump has long been more than willing and has provided investigators with any and all information that they requested that he had regarding Jeffrey Epstein. The attorney for one or more of the victims has said in the past in an interview that Trump is the one guy that was more than willing to help and completely open to answering all questions. So I think that's probably what Speaker Johnson was saying, that in terms of providing information, there have been very few people that have been as helpful as doing just that, and that, is Donald Trump. Glenn Beck is coming up next. I will talk